3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being on board with us. Our buddy Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central will join us coming up bottom of the hour. He was on hand in downtown Charlotte last night as the Gamecocks beat the Tar Heels for the fourth time in 5 tries. A nail-biter, a pitcher's duel, old school, 2-1. Each team, really, there's even a lot of left-on-base numbers. I think it was 10 for Carolina, 7 for the Heels.
Combined 17 left on base.
So not a lot. It was a good old-fashioned pitcher's duel for whatever reasons. And both teams coming off scoring some runs this past weekend. North Carolina against Virginia, Gamecocks against A&M. For whatever it may be worth to you, and I would say I wouldn't put much into this. But Carolina goes to Gainesville this weekend where Florida is scuffling. I am making no predictions because I could tell you Carolina's scuffling a little bit as well, but not to the degree that the Florida Gators are. They were swept at Missouri over the weekend and lost last night to their hated rival Seminoles 19-4.
Yeah, I'd say the Gamecocks have had a better week.
So, again, I make zero predictions. I don't know what any of that means for this weekend. And going to Gainesville is hard for any SEC school, any school at all for that matter. South Carolina, of course, lost the Supers there last year after sweeping Florida here. So we'll see. I don't know. But, again, you got to be encouraged, I think, by beating a really good team last night with different arms than you've been using on the weekend. So, like I say, whatever that may be worth to you, that's where Carolina baseball is. But we'll get into some of those discussions with Jack, and we'll hear a little bit from Coach Kingston as well coming up a little bit later on. We got some sound from Shane Beamer. We touched on a little bit of it late yesterday while we were out at Pro Swing. And, again, thanks to the Michael and Nathan, Evan, Philip, Steven, Dave, the whole crew at Integrated Media, who also own and run Pro Swing, for having us out. It was a good time. But we heard a little bit from Shane yesterday. We'll have more for you from what the head coach had to say about the scrimmage. There's another one this week, but Tyler and Elijah have been carving up some extra cuts for us, so we'll do that for you. And I'm going to get into a few things around college football today, beyond Gamecock football. This Super League thing isn't going to happen, but in a little bit, Elijah and I are going to discuss two things, one pro, one con about it. The pro has been discussed before, and the con is why I think more than any other reason it isn't going to happen. But I once we start talking about that, I'd like to hear from you guys because, as the TV partners, I'll just say this, as the TV partners continue to dole out more money, They don't want to do it for a bunch of just, bad to mediocre matchups as the bulk of their content. And so what might that look like in an expanded playoff? We already pretty much know. We know we're going to 12 this season. We know pretty much that they're going to 14, maybe as soon as 26. And I continue to be a proponent. I don't mind saying it. Like, I'm not a proponent of of necessarily going to 96 in the basketball tournaments, but I do see some form of expansion. But I am, Elijah, a proponent of moving straight to 16 in the college football playoff. It's a nice, round, strong tournament number. I get that buys are part of what maybe the reward system is all about, and so I can appreciate and get behind that too.
But so is playing 2 lower seeds.
Yeah, but you may as well go ahead and get to 16. And again, let's start playing for home field advantage. None of this bowl game crap. Sorry, they're not bowl games anymore. I'm going to keep banging that drum too.
Just like NCAA tournament basketball games, neutral sites.
Yeah. And by the way, something because we have locally been fortunate enough to actually be discussing and celebrating the team that won the championship. We have not gotten into some of the logistics around the women's basketball tournament's future. There are 2 stories that are out there right now. One concerns unit payments for the women's tournament, which could start as soon as next season. Another is that the chair of women's basketball, not the committee, but the woman that oversees women's basketball for the NCAA is ready for the organization to take a hard look now at the format of the tournament. In other words, do we need to keep playing first and second round games on campus? It's no secret that the number one reason for doing that in this tournament isn't as an incentive during the regular season. It is to sell tickets. Might the game be strong enough where they can go ahead and play every round at neutral sites? Something to be looked at. So there's no guarantee they want to well, let me say this. I think there is a guarantee that they want to have that happen when they believe it would be most financially feasible. And these things may tie in together, Elijah. It may well be that until such time as you have guaranteed unit payments being doled out to schools and conferences, you know, once you do that, okay, then we can shift to the full neutral court model. But if there's a disruption in revenue, I don't know why you would do it.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, too. I know why they'd want to do it outside of, you know, the money of selling extra tickets at neutral sites. When you look at it through just like a tournament perspective, just like a game perspective, what are some of the reasons why, you know, we have so many upsets in the men's game in the first couple rounds? Why are there so many 15 seeds beating twos? That seemingly happens every other year.
Yeah.
And we've had 2 16-over-1s since 2017, something that never happened ever. And because you got to the point where there was a lot of parity in the game, and when you're on a neutral site, no matter how close really you are to maybe that team might be playing, I can't remember where I think it might have even been Pittsburgh or something like that, where, you know, Purdue got beat by Fairleigh Dickinson. A neutral crowd will eventually start favoring the underdog once you get to a certain part of the game.
Call on me.
Yes, Jay. You're being called on.
1997, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, South Carolina, Coppin State. You know what? Arena probably became Coppin State fans about 35 minutes into that game.
Oh, that place was loud for Coppin.
Yep. And I'm telling you,
Carolina was shell-shocked.
You're going to get to a point where that also elevates the game. The star power that the women's game had right now helped elevate it. The star of Dawn Staley in the South Carolina team, the star of Caitlin Clark in Iowa, Angel Reese at LSU, the storylines, that builds it up one way, and almost in a similar way that Magic and Bird did for the college game back in '79. But now you got to the point where, you know what else could help it too? A level or a variable of unpredictability of having, you know, maybe I'm trying to think of, like a 2-seed UCLA losing to 15 seed, Cal State Northridge, and that happening at a neutral site, and that would be a lot of fun for a lot of people. That also helps elevate the game. You don't get
LA
that
Times headline, UCLA quits basketball.
Yeah, quits basketball forever. But you know what? That would help. That would also help the game a little bit too, because you don't get that when it's a true road game. That would also, if that ever did happen, would make it one of the greatest upsets in the history of collegiate athletics, if you're to do that on the road in a true road game. But if you can get to the point where you're still going to be making the same amount of money to do them on neutral sites, I think that's something that, as a sport, could help elevate the profile in a different way.
I think that's what they want to do. And again, it's worked quite well for the men's tournament through the decades, and I think it can now as the women's game continues to grow. But again, revenue is certainly a part of it, and that's why they play these games on campus. And it may well be that there's some combination of it for a few years even. Maybe you have just one game. I don't know. Or I don't know if they liked. I'll be curious to see the reviews from the internal reviews of the 2 regional system. Did that work? And again, while the crowds were good in Albany, was there, like I said, I know this sounds bad, and I don't mean it to, because Albany's bigger than Columbia, so I'm not trying to sit here and say Columbia is where you should do.
Don't Rebecca Lobo this.
But it's Albany. Again, the other one was in Portland. That makes sense.
Big city.
Portland, Oregon's a big city. It's easy to get to, and it's let me say again, it's a big city. Portland is like Charlotte big, so it's not like, mega big, but it's big. Yeah, the other one, instead of Albany, if you want to have it in that part of the country, Hartford?
Buffalo?
Even Buffalo feels remote, but it's bigger. Providence? Boston? I know Boston had a men's regional, so maybe not that, but you see, but Providence?
And the same, yeah.
Brooklyn?
Realm.
If you don't want to have it at the Garden, Brooklyn's got a big gym. Even Newark. I mean, Devils play in Newark still, right? So,
yeah, I think it's the Prudential Center now.
I don't know what it is. They used to have the old Meadowlands Arena where the Nets and the Devils played, right next to the football stadium. I imagine that's a parking lot now. I
don't know if there's anything existing there at the moment.
So, but that's all. Even Pittsburgh or something like that. I'm just saying, a place that's easier to get to for the neutral fan that just wants to come see what's up.
Yeah.
I imagine that the folks that were in Albany, and again, I'm not dogging Albany at all, but if you were in Albany, then, you were there because that's where you wanted to be for these games. And that's fine. But I just think sometimes a bigger media market also gets you more eyeballs from newspapers, television, radio, web, et cetera. Anyway, we'll see. But those are a couple of things that we'll get to. Latest Mel Kiper mock draft is out. We'll touch on that for you. A couple of other NFL notes to discuss as well. And again, Jack Veltri coming up talking Carolina baseball before they head off to Florida. A good win last night. Up in Charlotte. 803-404-6100 to join us. Love Chevy phone lines, Firehouse Subs text line here in Columbia. And oh, by the way, again, we've been so busy, which is great. It starts tomorrow.
Oh, I heard there's some type of golf tournament that's occurring next to a shopping center.
We mentioned even a little bit yesterday that we were going. One of the reasons we were at Pro Swing is because it's Masters Week. Tomorrow, in this 3 o'clock hour, I believe we're preliminarily scheduled for our great friend Coach Bill McDonald to come hang out with us and talk a little Masters in Augusta National. So always look forward to having Coach Billy Mack in studio with us for the majors and more.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, should be. And one of us, you've been traveling a lot for sporting events.
I have.
And now the other guy might get a chance next week. I'm not going to Augusta, but I think I'll be doing a couple of shows from the Heritage.
Look at you. Yeah. That'll be fun.
I'm going to try to get in the Lighthouse. Try.
What percentage of success do you think you might have?
Less than 1.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance.
I'm going to channel my inner Lloyd Christmas here.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance. I think we can get you in.
I got a chance a few years ago to meet Nick Faldo down there, and I got a chance to meet Ian Baker Finch. Nick is no longer doing CBS Golf, but Ian Baker Finch is still around, I think. I'll see if he remembers me. Like, hey, you remember that guy you met at that place that time?
That one guy, yeah.
That's me. Can you get me into the Lighthouse?
Doing shows from Final Fours and Lighthouses. This is going to be the most well-traveled shows in South Carolina.
We'll see. But if not the Lighthouse, somewhere, I hope, very close. But I will be at Harbortown, so I'm looking forward to that. So we'll touch on those kind of things for you next week. All right, when I come back, again, the big story brewing around the Southeastern Conference, 2 of them. It's all around men's basketball and John Calipari. We'll get into the official news and the unofficial news on those storylines as the Wednesday postgame show continues. One of the reasons I love telling you about Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union is how personal the relationships can get really quick over there. Again, my wife and I have gotten to know the staff at the Millwood branch, and just terrific people. And, since 1936, they've been doing this across the Midlands. They're offering the banking services that credit unions offer at lower rates, fewer fees. They see the difference at Palmetto Citizens that they make every day in the community. Teachers that get car loans, local businesses that open up instead of having to go through all the hassle of some big bank somewhere else, neighbors who just bought their very first house. To Palmetto Citizens, it's not just money. It's committed to making the Midlands a better place. Join their family. Be a part of what they do. Learn more at palmettocitizens.org. Checking accounts, savings account, credit cards, student loans, car loans, mortgages, equity lines, all of it done. Lower rates, fewer fees, and great people. palmettocitizens.org. Join my wife and me as customers and achieve your potential. Eighteen minutes after 3 o'clock on this Wednesday. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. Appreciate you being with us. Our buddy Jack Veltri joining us in just a bit. Got some college football, big picture things to discuss later on, plus some sound from Coach Beamer, and we'll get you some sound from Coach Kingston a little bit later on too. But let's get back into the basketball search for Kentucky, of course, prompted by John Calipari's departure to Arkansas, which, by the way, has been made official today. And interestingly enough, at a, dare I say, I know this sounds weird, right? But at a significantly lower per year salary than he was making at Kentucky. Now, he's still making a lot of money, and I believe he will still be one of the top 3 coaches in terms of pay in college basketball, but he was making $8.5 million at Kentucky. He has signed a 5-year, and that was by the way, that was the initial report that had come out that he was going to be making the same money. He's actually not. It's a 5-year contract that starts at $7 million per season. It includes a $1 million signing bonus and $500,000 retention bonuses each year of the contract, plus incentives for making and advancing in the NCAA tournament, and 2 automatic rollover years for NCAA tournament appearances. So as long as he's making it, then the contract will just immediately add another year. So this could extend through 2031 as it is currently written. For what it's worth, John Calipari is 65 years old. So I don't know if some of those retention bonuses. And I'm certain that there were incentives in his contract. Everybody's got incentives for advancement. To what degree relative to what Arkansas is going to do, Elijah, I don't know. My gut tells me that that Coach Cal doesn't do this to make a lot less money, but it may have been like, well, all right, I tell you what, shift. And I've heard, by the way, that they might have like $6 million ready for NIL.
Oh, they got a big NIL package together, mostly funded by the Tyson Foods company.
Yeah.
So
Mike Tyson's done well for himself.
Yes. And I love his dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. They're still good.
You know what I actually do like? Because I used to, I'd make a few extra for my girls back in the day. Those chicken fries.
Oh, they're awesome.
Those things are good, man.
Hey, Tyson chicken's good. Like I guilty pleasure of mine is still buying like an entire bag of the frozen wings, buffalo wings, and eating the entire bag myself.
Yeah, that's not. I mean,
put them in an air fryer. Get them.
Yeah, but I'll say those are great in the air fryer.
Yeah. I'm hungry.
But he's making about the same money.
Yeah.
I mean, so you don't do it. So, but it is now official. So there's that. And now, as really was the case from the get-go, the speculation is surrounding who Kentucky goes and gets. There is a report out there from last night from Lexington, not a national reporter, not somebody necessarily talking to an agent, that Mitch Barnhart, the AD at Kentucky, has offered Baylor head coach Scott Drew the job. Elijah and I were discussing this off air before the show today, and there was sort of a secondary part to that story that also, I guess, well, it didn't hint, but said that Scott Drew had been given 24 hours. I find that part a little hard to believe. Because, again, if anything, it would be sort of pompous and arrogant. It wouldn't surprise me with Kentucky basketball. They don't need to move that quickly.
They have plenty of time.
You know, you got time here. The season's over. The portal, you can work within the structure there. I know you would like your new coach to try and talk to your recruits. And yes, John Calipari has a leg up on talking to the kids that he recruited. I think some of them will go to Arkansas, and I think some of them will not.
Some of the kids at Kentucky right now, Aaron Bradshaw put his name in the transfer portal.
But there's some big kid that Musselman had gotten that's back in the portal.
Yep.
So it's going to work both ways. So the point on that is I don't. Mitch Barnhart is a good athletics director. I don't know that you lay down some ultimatum. And and you know what, though? If you did and I'm Scott Drew, I'd be like, dude, I'm making like 5.5. I live in Waco, Texas. They love me here. I've won a title here.
He's a god there.
You know, okay. You give me 20 more hours, then no.
I'll give you 20 more seconds, and I'll say no.
Yeah. I mean, give him 72 hours. Okay, I get that, perhaps. Which is still, I mean, hey, honey, listen, I'm going to go to a pressure cooker of a job where I could be reviled within seconds, but we're going to make like $3 million more a year other than this nice established life. Again, I thought, you told me yesterday, I was thinking that Scott Drew had been there a while, but I was thinking it was like 12 to 15 years. It's been 21 seasons. I mean, that family, that's home. That's not just the job.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, if he had a kid the day he took the job, that kid would be old enough to drink now.
The kid's in college.
Yeah.
Or leaving college. Yeah. That's established.
Yeah.
And at that point.
Very much so.
Yeah, you know, so I even wonder if that, you know, look, maybe they're empty nesters now. I don't know. Maybe now's the right time. And Scott Drew's a fantastic coach. And I really do think, listen, he doesn't have as sterling a record in the NCAAs as you might believe. But considering where he works and how far down the pecking order Baylor University might be, even in a big, talent-rich state like Texas, makes the job he's doing very impressive because they are relevant every year in a strong basketball conference. So you think with the resources provided at UK and the reputation to go recruit just as hard with a different level of player would make a big difference, and it would. But so I'm not buying into the 24-hour thing, though. I don't think Mitch Barnhart. Again, I could be wrong. I don't know.
Foolish for him to give him that timeline.
Yeah, like
I would say.
It's like, hey, this is our job. I'll give it to you. It's like, why are you rushing, man?
Well, here's the thing: the only other reason I could think of to give somebody that short of a time frame to accept a job or not is if you have a contingency plan already in the rear view, where your plan B is ready to go right now. And you like your plan B not almost as much as plan A, but you don't want to wait around if you have somebody wants to be able to go right now. And I'm sure plan B is not, the B in plan B does not stand for Billy Donovan.
I think it stands for Bruce Pearl.
Yeah, that might stand for you.
And you know what? You could have said, I'll give you 24 minutes. And Bruce Pearl is taking your job.
I could see that.
Again,
it would be the weirdest SEC coaching arc of all time.
Yeah.
But
I still say, I mean, if I were doing the hiring, my choice 1A, B, and C is Bruce Pearl, not Dan Hurley. And it's not about the ability.
Yeah.
Again, I need an infusion of real life and vigor into my program, and Bruce Pearl will provide it. It may burn out, but that's okay. I can reset what's going on over 5, 6, 7 year period. The other interesting name is Billy Donovan, whose Bulls lost last night. Now you tell me, they're pretty locked in for the play-in game regardless?
I need to go back and check. I know they've been battling for it, and it hasn't necessarily been the prettiest of roads. And, if you watched the game last night where they got beat by the Knicks, they did suffer a butt fumble-esque type folly play that, for most coaches would make me want to call Lexington that very second and say, get me the hell out of here. Right. After Torrey Craig should have thrown an alley-oop to himself off the backboard down 10 points, and Andre Drummond thinking it was for him, both guys going up for it and botching the play.
Yeah, they're good, man. They would have to they'd have to not win again, basically, and the Nets would have to go on a run. You know what? Hang on.
It's not completely impossible.
No, it's actually – the Nets have been eliminated, so yes. So the Bulls are into the play-in round. Now it's more a matter of do they host it or not,
or go to Atlanta,
or go to Atlanta. Yeah, so
37 and 42.
God, it seems like you better win that game regardless of where it's played. You could play it on a ice rink, but I've seen something that has maybe changed my mind on Billy Donovan just a little. Initially, I said to myself, no way Billy Donovan wants this job in today's collegiate climate. That's one of the reasons he got out. But I was watching, and I forget which podcast it was now because I've been watching a bunch on this of late. Whose was it? I'll think of it in a second. But one of the guys that was a guest said, hey, listen, now with the way NIL is and the portal – there are some things where, Billy got tired of some of the behind-the-scenes crap, the shoe companies and some of the other things in terms of the acquisition of talent. And he wasn't always about that. Billy's a ball coach, right? He's one of those. He's kind of like Steve Spurrier.
So.
He likes to coach ball. He doesn't want to, that's why he likes the NBA, because let somebody else go get my players.
The GM does that.
Yeah. And you got to come back and be your own GM, and that might be one of the things that he got kind of tired of. But there might be a way to hire somebody. Certainly, you'd still be in charge, but hire somebody within the program that is not a GM per se, but a personnel guy. Somebody that can handle a lot of that. And Billy's the closer. Something to that effect. And I thought, well, maybe. But the difference is, again, Kentucky's going to want to have this hire done by the weekend. And Billy's going to have a playoff game in 2 weeks. And I don't see him, I just don't see him leaving the Bulls now, and I don't see Kentucky waiting 2 or 3 weeks. And if they win, then they're in the playoffs.
Right.
So, and there's, listen.
Tough timeline.
I don't follow the NBA like you do, and I know we're up against a break. Whoever is the GM of the Bulls now, and I don't know who it is, go get Billy a couple of players in the offseason. This dude can coach. Go get him some talent. That's what you need. We'll come back around to this as we continue to follow who Kentucky might go get. But on the other side of the break, our buddy Jack Veltri was in Charlotte last night as the Gamecocks beat the Heels 2-1. How does that set him up for the trip to Gainesville? We'll talk to Jack about that and more Carolina baseball when the postgame show continues. Let me take a minute to tell you about Dr. Dan Balknight and his fantastic staff at the men's clinic out in Irmo. A lot of us as guys do not like going to the doctor, but we know when we don't feel right. And it might not be that you're sick. It might just be that you're off. Why? What is going on with me? Well, the men's clinic and Dr. Dan himself will take the time to get to know you. Yes, there'll be some comprehensive lab work done to test a lot of different levels and things about you to see what's going on from a body standpoint, but also, you know, how the heart and mind might all work together. Dan does that for you, too. He gets to know you. So does his staff at the men's clinic. It's one of their real great approaches to men's health care. It's professional, it's convenient, it's confidential, it's local. So check them out. Call them up for a free consultation, 803-875-MENS, and learn more about everything they do to keep guys running strong for a long time. The Men's Clinic, SC.com. Check out Dr. Dan.
Hit well. In the gap to right center. That's going to the wall. That will score the go-ahead run. Dylan Brewer sneaking 3 bases. The cutoff throw comes towards third, and he is going to be safe. Third base baseman wants a replay review, but regardless of how that turns out, it is Dylan Brewer putting a charge into one in the right center field gap to give the Gamecocks the lead again, 2-1 here in the eighth.
A back-and-forth affair. He was ultimately called out, by the way, last night. But, hey, so what, right? The go-ahead run had scored at that point in time. And that was Yeah, it was a tight game. Carolina scored top of the third. North Carolina finally got their run, bottom 7. And as Mark Kingston said in postgame, felt like a little bit of a gut punch, but Carolina immediately responded in the 8th. And our good friend Jack Veltri was on hand in downtown Charlotte to see all of it. I got to be honest with you, sir, and thank you as always for being with us. I didn't see a 2-1 pitchers duel on a Tuesday night in Charlotte unfolding the way it did last night.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me on as always. But I think you're definitely right there, Jay. 2-1 was not the score I had in mind, but South Carolina had to do things the hard way, right? They didn't have Garrett Gainey or Chris Veach available last night just because they had pitched on Sunday for multiple innings to get that win over Texas A&M. But you go with Dylan Eskew on the mound, who I thought he was all right. He could have been better, could have been worse, but he didn't give up any runs. That's the big thing. And then, you're turning the ball over to Roman Kimball, Parker Marlott, and Connor McCreary to finish things off. And I think all of them, maybe besides Marlott, pitched exceptional last night. And I think that's a big step moving forward in regards to, what you're able to do down the stretch, because you're not always going to be able to count on your big dogs to go out there and pitch every game. You're going to have to, at some point, get outs from other guys, unlikely heroes, basically. And it was a good sign against a very good North Carolina team to go out there and pitch the way they did.
Yeah, let's start with Eskew and then get you into Kimbrell a little bit. Again, Kimball, who did not give up any runs, as you mentioned. Dylan, I was a little surprised because I thought he was pitching well. I know he threw a lot of pitches. I'm looking at the box score now, 48 in 3 1/3. Did you? And he had a couple of walks and just the one strikeout. Did you notice anything from a velocity standpoint, a location standpoint? What maybe was the biggest reason why he was pulled when he was, considering no runs allowed?
So I don't know. I don't think it's more of like a velocity thing or location, like you said. I think here's the thing. So it was the 9-hole hitter the first time through the order. I think he gave up a walk, and that usually spells trouble because normally it's happened more than once now, Jay, where he's walked a guy at the bottom of the order, and then the lineup's coming up for the second time through the order, and that's usually where he struggles. And when Talmadge Lee Crew, I think, made an error or something, 2 guys were on base, and you're like, oh, well, here's where it's going to fall apart, as he has done in the past. Well, he ends up getting a big double play and getting out of the inning, and then in the 4th inning, he gets into a little bit more trouble, and I think that's kind of where, okay, you don't want it to get worse than it already was. I mean, it wasn't bad or anything. It's just you didn't want Eskew to get into a situation where he's giving up multiple runs and his confidence gets shot. So I think it was a good decision to pull him there, bring in a fresh arm and Roman Kimball to go out there and pitch the way he did. And, I mean, I'm sure we'll get to Kimball here in a second. But, again, like I said, it was a good time to pull Eskew last night and let things not unravel for him, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I tell you, just finish the thought then, and let's go straight into your thoughts on Roman. I thought it was interesting that Coach Kingston talked about him seeing the sports psychologist and just trying to figure a few things out between the ears. You take it from there.
Yeah, I think it was a little surprising because I had no idea about any of this, that Roman had been going to see a sports psychologist and stuff. And I'm very interested to learn more about that in the future, hopefully. But that combined with him staying behind on a road trip earlier in the season, it just kind of puts into perspective how much this guy was really struggling, not just on the mound, but mentally and stuff, because baseball is such a mental game more than any other sport out there, in my opinion. And, I mean, if you have one bad outing, it can really impact your mental state and what you do moving forward and stuff, and it's confidence and all of that. And you need all that sort of stuff to pitch. It's not just, how you're throwing on the mound and stuff and what kind of pitches you're throwing. You have to have the confidence to go out there and say, okay, I'm going to be able to get out. And for the last few starts and outings, he really hadn't been able to do that. But these last 2 outings, he's pitched a combined 6 innings against Texas A&M and North Carolina last night, and he's only allowed 1 run, and his strikeouts have been a lot higher. His walks have been lower. All the sorts of things you're wanting to see, and most of all, his confidence is getting back to where you want to be. So I don't know if he's going to jump back to the rotation at any point, but I think right now I like him in the spot of a long reliever, come in and pitch when you need him to, and he can go out there and get outs now.
And Jack, from the mound to talking about the bats here, I mean, a win, will kind of help you oversee a lot of things. But they struck out 16 times last night. And in the last 3 games, they've combined for 38 strikeouts. And I just did the math. And that's over 12 strikeouts a game from a batting order. That's been one of the strengths of your team coming into the season and supposed to be, the thing that you can rely on most to be the most solid aspect of your game. Where do you think they've kind of struggled here in these last few games, particularly these last 3 or so? In terms of just trying to be able to put the bat on the ball, because they've seemed to struggle in the last few.
Yeah, you kind of you basically just said it there with the amount of strikeouts they've had. It's kind of getting to a point where it's ballooning and it's becoming a little bit of a constant. And, I mean, it shouldn't really come as a surprise considering I believe South Carolina led the SEC in strikeouts last year at the plate. So this is just kind of who they are at this point, and everything else they do is kind of on them. And I think one of the biggest issues, we'll go back to the weekend real quick. I think they just ran into a little bit of bad luck. Parker Nolan getting robbed of a home run and Blake Jackson hitting a line drive with the bases loaded right back at the pitcher that gets caught. That's just bad luck right there. And you're basically taking away 3 runs right there in a 6-3 ball game that South Carolina ends up losing. Now, going back to last night, they just couldn't hit with runners in scoring position. Through the first 7 innings, I believe they went 0 for 9 with runners on second and third, and they just could not bring them across. And, I mean, outside of guys like Ethan Petrie, Parker Nolan, and Dylan Brewer, who all on multi-hit games, I think Kennedy Jones was the only other guy to get a hit last night. So it's just guys in the order are not hitting the way that I think most people are expecting them to. It's baseball. It's going to happen. You're going to go through slumps, but at some point some guys have to pick it up. And it was good to see a guy like Dylan Brewer last night get the go-ahead hit and pick it up because he had definitely been struggling. I mean, I think over the last month, his bat had just cooled off since he was hitting like 520 through the first few weeks of the year. And that's going to be expected. You can't hit that high all year, but to be able to go out there and get 3 hits last night and really help the team, with runners in scoring position in those late innings was definitely a big pick-me-up.
Jack, we only got about a minute and a half left. Can I impose upon you to hold over because I know Elijah and I both have a couple more things we want to get to in a little more long-form time. You got time for us?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, good deal. All right, sit tight. We'll have more in-depth stuff. I've got one guy in particular that I want to ask Jack about in terms of the batting order and some things that may need to change as we hit the halfway point of the conference slate. Jack Veltri with us, Gamecock Central, talking some Carolina baseball. You are listening to the Postgame Show.
There's a pop-up in the shallow center field. This could be trouble. Tippett dives and makes the catch. What a play by Will Tippett. It was in the Bermuda Triangle. Neither Brewer or Jones was going to get there. Tippett went out towards center field and then had to twist his body and make the diving catch, shifting back towards the left field side. That is a 5-star play, folks.
Derek Scott on the call. Shortstop Will Tippett making another one of his defensive gems this season. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell, and our buddy Jack Veltri kind enough to hang over for an extra segment as we talk more South Carolina baseball. Gamecocks will head down to Gainesville, where if you think Carolina's scuffling a little bit, Florida has lost 4 straight to Missouri, 3 of them, and then just hammered last night in the midweek by Florida State. But Jack, I had Elijah play that cut because that's where I want to take you, and it's Will Tippett. Mark Kingston has told us on this show, I'm sure he's told you guys plenty in both midweek and postgame press conferences, that they love Will Tippett at short. I'm looking at his conference batting numbers, though, Jack, because I think the season numbers are a little misleading, but against higher competition. So far, Will Tippett is hitting .065 with a slugging percentage of .097 and an OBP of 171. So that's an OPS of less than 300. Again, I know the kid can play shortstop, but my question to you, Jack, as you cover this team every day, A, what is going on in conference games with him at the plate? And B, who could be someone, even temporarily, to try to get in there and replace him, not being the shortstop that he is, but at least providing something more at the bottom of the order to keep things rolling when it comes to the offense?
I'm glad you asked about him, because it's funny, because I actually asked Mark about Will Tippett today and kind of what's been going on at the plate, because watching him last night and just throughout SEC play, like you said, he looks so overmatched at the plate. It's just, I feel bad for the kid, honestly, because it feels like every time he goes up to the plate, odds are he's going to strike out. And that's kind of what it's been all year. I think he's going to be on pace to strike out more than he did last year. And even last year, I mean, he wasn't a great offensive player by any stretch last year. Had a few moments here and there, but he really hasn't had any of that so far this year. And the 2 saving graces with him, and Mark, said this earlier today, is that he plays elite defense in terms of consistency and range, and then he's also leading the team in stolen bases. Right. So from a defense standpoint, from what he's able to do on the base paths, that's why he's playing right now over guys like Lee Ellis, for instance, who Lee Ellis did get a start or two at shortstop over the weekend against Texas A&M, but, I mean, did he really look that much better than Will Tippett? I'm not sure. I think South Carolina is just in a position where shortstop's a position they're really going to have to try to hit hard long-term in the transfer portal or in recruiting moving forward. It's just, I don't know. There's too small of a sample size with Lee Ellis right now to kind of see what he can be. And maybe that means you need to get him more reps. But with Will Tippett, I think it's just right now is that you just hope it catches up at some point, but who knows if it will.
Jack, looking at the season as a whole, I mean, I'm looking at, the RPI right now, South Carolina at 15 coming into the week. And if you look at all the teams that are in the top 15 of RPI on WarrenNolan.com, he separates them out into, quad 1 through quad 4 wins, kind of like you do in basketball. But there's only one team in the top 15 that has more quad 1 wins than South Carolina, and that's Clemson, who has 10. South Carolina has 7. But I know there's been a lot of ups and downs this year, but when you have a top 10 strength of schedule and you're still 23-10, that surely should bode well, I guess, for your chances to be able to be placed well when we're starting to talk about, postseason selection.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that win last night over North Carolina, I mean, look, it might just seem like a midweek game, in Charlotte and all that sort of stuff, but it's bigger than that because South Carolina, you got to remember, was not ranked last night, and they ended up beating a top 15 team in the country out of the ACC. And North Carolina has always been a pretty good team, and I think for South Carolina, long-term speaking, when it comes down to, where they end up going, if they make the NCAA tournament for regionals and maybe hosting that sort of thing, a win like that is going to help separate them. And I think they need to continue to stack those right because now they get to go to Gainesville. That's going to be a tough series. And I think Florida's been on the downhill, and I think they can go out there and beat them. But if they win that series, that's another big memento for them. And then they've got an upcoming series with Arkansas next week. And then, every weekend in the SEC, if you go out there and win a series, is basically helping your resume strengthen. So I think South Carolina's in a good spot right now, despite losing a few series here and there. But I think right now, I think they're in a good spot, and I think they're going to continue to climb moving forward.
Jack, last thing for you, and you mentioned Coach Kingston spoke today. Do we have an idea beyond Eli Jones of what the weekend rotation might look like, considering there were a few scuffles again last weekend?
So he did not exactly go out there and name his rotation. Obviously, Eli Jones spoke today, so let's just say he's starting on Friday against Florida. From there, if I was Mark Kingston, and he said he was going to go double and triple check with pitching coach Matt Williams to figure out what they exactly want to do, I would go Matthew Becker on Saturday and then Ty Good on Sunday. I think you move Tyler Pitzer back to the bullpen just for this weekend for right now, and then maybe get him some innings here and there. I think you just don't want to throw him in for a third straight outing, or a start, I should say, against an SEC team on the road. And if he struggles, I wonder what that does for his confidence. Let him come out of the bullpen, let him get a few innings in a tight spot or whatever the case might be, blowout game, whatever it is. Let him get out there, let him get his feet wet, and then let the other guys go out there that have been pitching well, like Ty Good, Matthew Becker, get the starts. But I think, we'll wait and see what happens. But I think that should be what the rotation looks like.
I'll back you up 100% on that. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and I said the same thing. I said, for now, nothing etched in stone, really. I think Jones is etched in stone. As best as he can be. But I'm with you. I'd go Becker and Good. I think both of them have done a fine job. I've been really impressed with Ty Good, who has been a starter. And Mark told Elijah and me that on Monday, Jack. He's been a starter. We're getting him kind of used to this level of baseball. I think he's passing his tests. So we know what Becker can do, too. So we'll see. But hard to believe we hit the halfway point of the conference slate this weekend down in Gainesville. Jack, appreciate it, buddy. Thanks again for the extra time today. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Yeah, guys, thank you as always for having me on. Always appreciate it.
You bet. That is Jack Veltri. Follow Jack on Twitter, Jack T. Veltri, to do that and catch his work all the time at GamecockCentral.com. Yeah, the shortstop thing, man, that's going to be something that has to get looked at. You got to have more production at some point in time. More on the Kentucky basketball search and some college football news to get to coming up second hour. 4 o'clock on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. It's the second hour of the Postgame Show, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. And once again, a thank you to our buddy Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central for hanging out for a couple of segments with an extended look at what's going on with Carolina baseball. The good news is you've won 2 in a row now after a scuffle of losing 3 straight. Carolina overall is, let me get back to it here. What are they? 23-10, 6-6 in conference play. Got a nice win in Charlotte over the Heels last night, 2-1. A strong pitching performance from guys that, other than SQ, that you have not really counted on as much this year. Again, Kimball did a nice job for you last night, and that's good. Parker Marlett did not. He pitched 2/3 of an inning, gave up the only run that the Heels scored in the bottom of the 7th inning. Did get a strikeout, but also a walk, and faced just 4 hitters. McCreary came on 2 1/3. He was brilliant. 2 1/3, just 1 hit, 8 batters faced, struck out 5 of them, and threw 35 pitches in that 2 1/3. So there's a guy.
He's efficient.
Yeah, he's not going to be Veach or Gainey for you in most of your games, but if Veach and Gainey got to do something for you Friday, Saturday, is McCreary there? And listen, North Carolina is really good.
Number 4 in the RPI.
If you had told, excuse me, if you had told me South Carolina was going to win a 1-run game last night in the midweek against that team on a neutral field, that I'll believe. I would have thought 6-5, something in that realm.
Yeah,
not 2-1.
Well, especially if I would have told you before the game too that South Carolina would strike out 16 times and only draw 3 walks.
I mean, I can't. I look at last night. And I want to call that. I'll have to go back and do too much work here for you during the show, which I don't have time for, sadly. But I'm going to treat last night like I would treat a conference opponent, because that's the level of opponent that North Carolina is. There's no doubt about that.
Elite.
But South Carolina's numbers in conference games, just they're in hitting. And I know Mark and Monty have tried to push a lot of buttons. Monty's that's Monty's specialty is hitting, but there's that second half of the order. It's not. I know it's not coming around the way he wants to. I talk a lot about these things that we can't always get into. We're not at practice. We're not in the cage. We're not in the film sessions. But something is not quite clicking. Is it a matter of moving a guy up or down? They did that at Ole Miss for Petrie and Messina, and it paid some dividends for those guys. And then we saw it also continue to help Kennedy Jones get a little stronger in terms of what he's doing. But when you look at the conference numbers, and again, I can't count last night for that, but Cassis is doing well. Nolan is doing well. They're hitting .340. Cassis is slugging .611. And his on-base percentage is .425. So, I mean, there's a guy for you in Cassis in 12 games, 9 starts in conference play with an OPS of over 1,000. I'm there all day for that. Mm-hmm. Nolan's is well over 800. Kennedy Jones is near 1,000, not quite. Petrie's is over 1,000. So, I mean, you've got some of your guys that are doing good things in terms of getting on base and in getting some production when they hit. But then I look at Tippett, who plays brilliant shortstop, and Elijah and I were just talking off air. I don't know where the line is, and Jack mentioned that too. And what I mean by the line is, you can look at the defensive metrics and figure out what he's doing for you. You mentioned to me off air, man, dude can start some double plays. Yeah, he can pick it, and we've seen that matter a few times. So
saved him a few.
Yeah, there's some runs saved. Last night you keep a guy from getting on base with a brilliant play. Tracking back into the outfield. Who knows what happens? I mean, things happen when guys get on base and pitchers got to do stuff, and the guy's got to, maybe he's going to steal. There's a whole host of things. It's baseball. Y'all get it. But in conference play, he's hitting .065 with a slugging percentage, as I mentioned, of less than 100, .097, and an OBP of 171. That's not good. And if I do this right, I think he's got 39 plate appearances. not just at bats, but some plate appearances with some sacks and some walks, and he struck out 15 times. And he's hitting ninth, obviously. I'm not suggesting, look, I'm not here to say, move him to seventh. See what happens if he sees different pitches. That's not what I mean. But what can you do for him? Because it seems obvious that you don't want to take him out of the defensive lineup. Mm-hmm. But you also aren't going to have your pitcher hit so that he can be the guy that's designated. That's an issue.
You've reached a conundrum now at this point.
You have.
There is an issue there because you can't have an automatic out in SEC play. I mean, despite that, they're still at a decent spot. I was regurgitating the RPI numbers earlier. You still have a really good resume right now. You're still, maybe a game behind Tennessee, a few behind Kentucky. Obviously, no one's catching Kentucky right now. That's going to take a while to do. But you're still, in the thick.
They're 11-1 is remarkable.
It's insane. Yeah. The most unpredictable, I guess, thing from SEC baseball this season was Kentucky breaking out like that. But look, you're still in the thick of creating good seeding whenever you do play in the SEC tournament, and there's a lot to be good at, but at the same time, that's keeping you from really reaching a lot of the potentials, a lot of the automatic outs that are at the bottom of the order right now.
And again, I've seen this coaching staff already once this season push a few buttons to get some people going. So I know that can happen. Can it continue to happen? Or even for just a little bit, do you sit somebody? Sometimes that works too. Not like punishment.
No.
We've talked about that, with the quarterbacking sometimes. Like, hey, come over here for a series.
Refreshment.
I want you to see what I'm talking about when someone else does it, so that when I do put you back in, you get more of what I'm saying between your ears, and then your approach is maybe a little different. So, I don't know. And again, Florida scuffling. They lost last night 19-4 after being swept by Missouri. So you've got two teams that don't like each other. That had an interesting year last year. Florida came in here red hot. Carolina swept them. Then Carolina went down there for the Supers and got swept. I love the history of Carolina-Florida baseball, obviously. 12, 13 years ago now, you played for a title against each other. But right now you got two teams also that maybe don't feel great about themselves. But here's what I do know. Someone's going to win this series. Someone might sweep this series. I doubt that happens. But someone is going to win this series and feel better about themselves coming out of it. And at the halfway point, feel better about themselves. We'll see. But then for South Carolina's purposes, they've got Arkansas and Kentucky in consecutive weeks after that.
Yeah.
Two teams that so far have combined for 22 wins in 24 games.
That's pretty good. It's hard to do better than that.
Yeah.
So I guess we can classify this. I know there's a college football podcast I listen to, Split Zone Duo, where two teams that are struggling play against each other and have some scheduling obstacles after. They call it an anxiety bowl.
Right.
Would we call this series an anxiety series between Florida and South Carolina?
I think you can. It's too early still to be too concerned, but I do think that the loser of this series, if I'm not mistaken, will come out of this because Florida's also 6-6, correct? In conference play, I don't have the standings, but I believe Florida's also 6-6. Let me double check while I'm talking.
Yeah, Florida's 6-6.
Okay, so the loser of this series will likely come out of this 7-8.
Sub 500, regardless.
Again, if somebody gets swept, then it's a different story altogether. But I for now, I'm going to believe that someone wins this series 2-1. So that team comes out 7-8. Again, the world doesn't end at that point. And you brought up some good numbers. Carolina's metrics still are solid. You've got a good non-conference schedule that helps your overall strength of schedule. You obviously play the toughest conference in the country. Your RPI is going to go up for playing on the road in Gainesville and then for hosting Arkansas and then going to Lexington. You do need to win some of those games.
Winning some of them will definitely.
And in those 9, I don't know that South Carolina can afford any worse than, say, 4-5 at where they are now, which would still have them after 21 games at 10-11. But you'd have a strong strength of schedule, and then how do you close? Would you still be in position to be one of the 16 hosts? That starts to get a little dicier. You feel like maybe this year, especially with Kentucky and Arkansas doing what they're doing, unless they cool off.
Kentucky has to, right? I feel like Kentucky
they will.
Has to.
I mean, I think
Arkansas, I can see this being sustainable.
But even Arkansas, if Arkansas were to be able to pull off like 24 conference wins or something, that would be remarkable.
It would.
But they are strong.
They're very, very good.
Kentucky got better through the portal. But I could just, look, I don't think Carolina fans need to panic in terms of not making the tournament. You're going to have to fall off pretty hard and pretty far for that to happen. And I'm not suggesting that you be satisfied. They won't be satisfied if in these next 9 they go 4-5. They won't like that either, I assure you. So that's why this weekend becomes important. What you've caught Florida at an interesting time, and so much of what we do in life is timing. But you've caught Florida at an interesting time. You need to go take advantage of that. They don't feel good about themselves. You need to go do whatever you got to do Friday. Take an approach almost that A&M took of coming in here and doing something that they're not quite expecting, and see what you can do to get out on them early, whatever that might look like. And I don't know. Again, that's why coaches get paid lots of money to figure those things out. But you got to feel good about yourself after last night. And after, two one-run wins against excellent baseball teams. And as you mentioned, whether it's the rankings we look at or the RPI, A&M and North Carolina are strong. And you beat them in consecutive games. So you know you can play with just about anybody. You got to go do it with a greater level of consistency. 6-6 isn't what people are looking for after 12. But if you can go win this series this weekend, all right. Then go down to the Citadel and get a nice road win against a team that likes to beat you and has given you some games through the years. And then you come home and see what you can do with Arkansas. I got time for this? Yeah. Let's get to Mike on the phone lines. Hey, Mike, good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. What's up?
Hey, I want to talk a few things about baseball. I agree with you. The bottom of the lineup is definitely scuffling. I think, Tippett, I think we should definitely keep playing him for a little bit, but I also think it's important to give Lee Ellis reps. I mean, they went to him this weekend, and he singled on Saturday. I think, continue to give him reps, because maybe if you give him more reps, he'll get hot. Again, I think Tippett getting playing time is still important too. I think that I'd like to see more of a platoon with Tippett and Ellis and have them split time. Another thing, I think Cole Messina obviously getting hurt is not what we want with the concussion, but I think it's helped us see that Dalton Reeves is a really good backup, and I think that we need to make sure we keep giving him reps too, because he's shown that he can hit the ball, and I think it also at the end of the season save some of Messina's legs a little bit for him to catch every day.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I'll take those in reverse. Yeah, you want Messina to get back and healthy. You need him. You need him long term, but absolutely he needs days off. And Mark talked with Elijah and me about that a couple of weeks ago, how important it was for Reeves to have a couple of good games in the midweek. I think in one of those Messina DH'd or played first. DH?
Yeah,
he DH'd.
Yeah. Reeves spelled him behind the plate.
Yeah. So you want that back. I don't disagree in theory with a shortstop platoon, but what I would say is a shortstop platoon is not like a left field or right field platoon. You like your shortstop to play. And typically on a lot of baseball teams, your shortstop might be, if not the best athlete on your team, then one of them. Now, again, from a hitting perspective, it's not happening for Will Tippett. But you see plays like last night and know that he is capable of that on virtually every pitched ball and every hit ball back to him. And that's the, as Elijah, as you said a minute ago, that's the conundrum right now, because dude plays great shortstop, but that bat's got to come around at some point. Get back into the Kentucky basketball search. Got some college football to discuss too. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you here on this Wednesday afternoon. Tomorrow in this, or in the first hour of the show, expected to be joined by Gamecock men's golf coach Bill McDonald, one of our favorite guests, and ranks way up on the list of visits, at least with me. You've met him a couple times, right? And but I guess since we moved to afternoons, we have. I don't know if we've had.
Not on our show. I know I've not met him as a guest on the show, but I have met him once.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess on this show it's different. I guess he still has a really high up record on the halftime show.
That's right.
But not so much here. So, but I'll count it either.
It's time
way.
to make history.
Yeah. There you go.
It'll be made regardless.
One more note. Thank you for hitting us with some of y'all's comments on the baseball team. I think this one is the one I want to choose. Mark hits us on the Firehouse Subs text line. Says, I agree with you about the bottom half of the lineup being an issue. But if you really want to see the problem, look at our batting average with runners in scoring position. We are good at getting guys on base. We tend to strand them there. Yes, Mark, they do. Again, I'm looking at conference numbers, and I know it's not completely fair. I'll give you both. All right, I'll start with the conference numbers, though. South Carolina, this isn't terrible, but again, this is a 6-6 team, so, do with it what you will. South Carolina has left 97 runners on base in 12 games. Their opponents have left 85 runners. So, you're literally leaving one more runner per game than your opponent. That's not terrible, but you're 6-6. If you were leaving the same number, you'd have probably driven a few more guys in, and you might be 8-4.
Stranding 8 runners on base per game. Here's the thing, it fluctuates a lot, too.
It does.
This year, they've had a couple of real stinkers when it comes to leaving guys on base, and that's been the difference between about 3 or 4 different games this year. Now, while they've been pretty consistent for a lot of it, go back to the Clemson series. I know it's not SEC play, but, that does kind of affect your overall outlook of the year, and those 2 games were defined by your inability to bring home runs. And look, I'm sure.
And what were the scores? Both of them, 5-4. Right.
1-run games.
Including, I was telling somebody this morning, you played 21 innings against Clemson, and the aggregate score was 10-8. And how many did you leave on base?
A significantly more amount than they did.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing about leaving, runners stranded is that can be the difference in winning or losing 1-run games. And I know, mathematically, you're supposed to win as many of those 1-run games as you lose, but there's usually one factor in all of those 1-run games that separates you from getting past that hump. And it seems to be for this team that's the one that keeps them from winning these good luck, bad luck games, as a lot of statisticians would call them.
Yeah, and like I say, I'm not pinning it on any one person. Mark will obviously take full responsibility as head coach, but Monty Lee was brought in to do a lot of what they do, with the bat and making contact and trying to have that. Look, baseball has changed to a point where there are just a lot more guys striking out. That's not an excuse. That's, for those of you who follow the sport, that the sport has kind of morphed that way. We've seen the spread offense more in football. We see basketball teams that want to shoot more threes. We see baseball now that it's become a real launch angle, OPS kind of a thing.
It's a higher risk strategy.
Yeah.
And a lot of sports have taken more higher risk strategies.
Yeah. And a lot of guys are swinging for the fences on a regular basis. There's not the old, I sound like old dude now, but there's not the old Tony Gwynn, Wade Boggs choke up with 2 strikes and just slap the ball the other way and live to fight another day by getting the next guy up. People are swinging for 400-foot home runs. It feels like 80% of the time or something. I don't know how much, but that's just where the sport of baseball is. And it may well be that as the sport morphs like that, it's biting Carolina in the butt a little bit more than it might bite some other teams. Again, I'm not certain of that because I don't have all of the analytical information in front. But to go to Mark's point when he just sent us that message, you are getting guys on base. It's the old ducks on the pond, as my old Little League and high school coaches all like to say. You got to bring them home.
Well, and here's another, if we're talking about a lot of the modern philosophy of the game, where there's some schools of thought that people are like, well, an out is an out is an out. It doesn't matter if it's a strikeout, whatever. Where I heavily disagree with that is if you have a team like South Carolina that's good at putting runners on base and you maybe only have 1 out in the inning, Not all outs are created equal in that situation, because if you have runners on second and third with one out, a strikeout will kill your chance of a sacrifice. If you're able to put the ball in play, you can open up the chance for a sacrifice fly, or any sacrifice to bring home a run, or the likelihood that the other team just messes up. It's still college baseball too. There are obviously more errors here than there are in the Major League Baseball. Make them have to put you out. And I think that's a huge thing too. When you look at a game like last night, you left 10 runners on, you struck out 16 times. You can get runners on. Like, go back to the fifth inning. You get the first 2 runners on. First and second, no out. What do? Strike out swinging the next 3 at-bats. Right. That completely kills it. You put one of those in play, then you might have a chance to bring another run home. I think that's the big thing, too. It's not just that you're stranding runners. It's how you're stranding
I was actually listening to Derek during that inning, and he lamented the inability to make contact. And I know our dear friend, Tommy Moody, we talked about that a lot with Tommy. Put the ball in play. Yeah, and to your point, Elijah, and I've said this for years and years and years, look at the line score. What is the line score for baseball? R-H-E. Mm-hmm. The E's happen, and they do lead to things. And I think you make a great point, man. Yeah, you got second and third, one out. Let's not even talk about a sac fly. Give me a grounder to deep second or short. That runner from third's coming home. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to be foolish at that point for a shortstop or second baseman to try to throw home for a guy who, by the time the ball is hit, is only 70 feet away.
In a non-tag out situation,
you're not getting him. So you're throwing to first to get the easy out. The runner on second has advanced at that point to third with 2 outs. And then what happens? A pass ball scores a run, an error scores a run. There's a whole host of things. But you're right, not making contact. And that's a killer. And I do, if something doesn't improve, this may be a team this season that does not host in the playoffs. I think if you're around 500 in conference play, should that continue, then the Gamecocks are going to make the NCAA tournament. They just may have to do it as a 2 seed somewhere else, which is not what fans around here want. It's not what Mark Kingston wants. It's not what any of his players want. And as I've said basically my whole career, the one expectation that I have for this program every year, and you won't always hit it, but the one expectation I place upon them is that you should expect to host in the first round of the NCAA tournament when you're South Carolina baseball. You have the resources, the talent, the fans, the facility. You should expect to be one of those 16 schools. And that's not a huge ask. I realize there's a lot of schools that play baseball, but it's not a huge ask to be one of the 16 schools that host in the first round. Being top 8 is a little bit of a different story. And then you've got to really secure a few things and might have to get close to 20 conference wins, not lose your midweeks, maybe not more than 1 or 2. And have around 40, 42 wins in a 56-game schedule. By the way, Carolina-Clemson won't be made up. I think Mark only had 55 games scheduled this year, and if I'm not mistaken, so they'll play 54 games this year. And you're looking at 23 wins already in 34 games, 33 games. So you got some work to do. But yeah, striking out a lot isn't going to get it done for you. And like I say, I'm not in the cage. I'm not at practice. Not in the film session with what they're working on with Monty to see those things get better, but needs to improve. And again, maybe you've caught Florida at a good time when they don't feel good about themselves either. Not that Carolina feels badly about themselves. They want to feel better.
Because they can be better. And we're looking at the things that can make you go from being a good baseball team to being one of those great baseball teams that can get you playing home games in the regional.
Yeah. But you got to put the ball in play. Again, that's that. I swear, man. Tommy and me through the years, and we worked together for so long. Put the ball in play. You make something happen. Make somebody throw a ball somewhere to do something. And more often than not, some good things will happen for you. All right, I will get back into the Kentucky basketball search. We do have some Shane Beamer sound to get to as well. And we'll hear a little bit from Coach Kingston. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
From the WIS Traffic Center, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to report to you that are causing some delays on the roadways here this afternoon. We're going to start on I-20 eastbound before White Pond Road exit 87. An accident has the 2 left lanes completely blocked. We also have 1 left lane blocked completely on I-26 eastbound at South Carolina 202 near exit 85. So traffic at almost a standstill at both of those locations. On I-26 westbound at South Carolina 202 near exit 85, an obstruction on the roadway has got the left lane blocked there as well. In Richland County, an accident on Clemson Road at I-20 is causing some mild traffic delay, as well as one on Sloan Road at Hard Scrabble Road.
Talking a lot of Carolina baseball over the last hour. The Gamecocks did win last night. You may have heard us talking in the last couple of segments and think like, man, what the heck is going on? Again, it's more about as we near the halfway point of the conference season where Carolina can turn it around. But they did beat the Tar Heels last night by a final of 2-1. So the Gamecocks have beaten North Carolina now 4 of their last 5. I think all those games have been up in Charlotte.
It's a nice flex.
It is. It is. Historically, going back to the old ACC days, North Carolina owns the series edge. Of late, South Carolina has been better. And the Gamecocks haven't been in the ACC in a while.
Yeah, beyond my time.
Pretty much beyond mine. I think I was 3-4 months old, something like that, when they announced they were getting out.
That Venn diagram of Jay Phillips existing in Carolina and the ACC is they got a very thin middle.
I was angry, though. I remember that. But not at Carolina for doing it. I was mad for them, like why they wanted to get out. I remember. I was throwing tantrums, throwing rattles across the room.
Like a lot of us at that age, throwing a lot of tantrums.
A lot of stuff.
And yours was fueled by the exit from the ACC.
My mother didn't realize it at the time. That's how big a sports fan I was.
Well, that's how you know it's been since birth.
Yeah.
Since birth, you're out here getting mad about the Gamecocks.
Instantly knew. Like, they are just screwing my team over. What the hell is going on here? My mom, meanwhile, was like, oh, no, what kind of child do I have? No. Anyway.
He's hungry. And you're like, no, I'm not. I'm just really mad about leaving the ACC.
Mom and Tommy Moody are probably up there right now. Like, oh, look at him.
Still mad about it.
He still can't get over it. Yeah, so there's that. Anyway, let's get back into one of the other big stories going on around the Southeastern Conference. If you have not yet heard, it is now officially official. John Calipari is the new head coach at Arkansas. You might say, duh, but yesterday, Coach Cal announced that it was time for a change for Kentucky, and today the University of Arkansas made his contract terms known publicly. He's got a 5-year deal starting at $7 million per, so it's a little bit less than his $8.5 per. But he's got some retention bonuses. He's got a $1 million signing bonus. What do you think John Calipari is going to do with his $1 million signing bonus?
That's a really good question. Buy a lot of Taco Bell.
Yeah. What's I don't know.
Or start going to Chipotle instead.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But out Northwest Arkansas, I mean, again, like you mentioned, you eat a lot of Tyson chicken.
And, that is their biggest donor.
Yeah.
One of the biggest donors that was responsible for getting John to Fayetteville. So maybe he gets extra Dino Nuggies.
I bet he builds a $1 million pool.
That'd be pretty
I don't
nice,
know why I think
pool.
that. But, I mean, yeah, I bet that's what just build a $1 million pool.
Just build something, because there's not a lot there. Build something. For everybody.
My high school catcher, one of my dearest friends, Hollis Rogers is his name, is now a heart surgeon out in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And actually, I think they live in Bentonville, but they love it out there. And he says it's growing by leaps and bounds. But he's originally from Monroe, Louisiana, but they love it out there. Yeah. I'll talk to Hollis about how I need to call Hollis. I'll call him. I'll call him this week and see how things are going. But Hollis went to Sewanee.
But
he's from Louisiana.
In the South.
Yeah, but he's more of an LSU guy.
Okay.
But now that he lives up that way, you kind of, it's like osmosis. It just kind of bleeds into you after a while. Anyway, so the deal overall for Coach Cal could actually extend to a 7-year deal relative to a 5-year deal, because basically there's a couple of rollovers that as long as he makes an NCAA tournament, the contract will automatically have a year added at the terms mentioned before. So, and again, he's got advancements for how far he gets in the NCAAs, and they'll make the NCAAs. I'm curious now to see how – look, let me be serious for a minute. Then we'll come back around to the Kentucky part of the equation. I think you and I talked about this either yesterday or day before, I forget which. I do think in some ways, whether he meant to or not, and I think part of it, and you mentioned about the Kentucky generational fan support and just the love of that program. And I get why they feel the way they do, because I've seen it here in Columbia through the years of the SEC.
They travel very well.
And I'm telling you, the final straw that broke the camel's back for Darren Horn, who, interestingly enough, is from Kentucky, didn't play at UK, was that gym. Carolina basketball was not good that particular season, obviously, when you're going to fire a coach. That gym it was about 15,000 Kentucky fans, man. It was awful.
And they'll do that to you.
It was brutal. And when I say awful, I don't mean like I couldn't stand being there. What I mean is for the home team, for the home program, for the home school, it had gotten so bad. But the Kentucky fans took full advantage. Anyway, so they love it. We used to joke. Man, if they're playing in Siberia,
they'll follow.
They will be there.
Oh, I'm telling you, I've covered some Vanderbilt Kentucky games at Memorial Gym where it was 85% Kentucky fans, and at Bridgestone Arena for every SEC tournament, that place becomes Rupp down south.
Yeah, it's a UK Invitational, right? I feel like in some ways John Calipari lost sight of that. Mm-hmm. He was so focused, it seems, on his pitch to recruits. I will not only get you to the NBA, but you are going to make a boatload of cash. Because there was one thing he put out, or they put out, somebody had, here's how many players I've put into the NBA from UK, and here's what they make on an annual collective basis.
It's a massive selling point.
And then it was, and it is. But, again, I think I said to you yesterday, what they need is more Reed Shepherds. They need people. Those fans want to win championships. Yes, they want to see their players matriculate towards the NBA. They're great with that. But if you said, hey, I'm going to give you 5 championships in 10 years or 50 NBA players in 10 years and no championships, which one you taking?
They're taking championships.
This is easy.
Yeah.
And
it's not even close.
I think Cal lost sight of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the Arkansas faithful feel very similar. I realize that UK isn't the only game in town because Louisville's a big school, and there's a lot of directional schools in Kentucky that have nice support. Arkansas is the only game in town, with all due respect to Arkansas, Little Rock, or any other whatever. It's Arkansas, man.
Fighting Derek Fishers, catching a stray on this show.
It's Arkansas. And they will expect you to do some good things. Eric Musselman did some good things. They had a rough year last year, but he didn't get fired. He left. Will Cal come back around? And I don't know, Elijah, but he's got to realize this is college athletics. Mm-hmm. It's not an audition for the next level. And I do think that's what Kentucky has turned into with so many of those one-and-done kids. They don't care either. They're from Chicago. They're from Denver. They're from Dallas. They're from Canada. They're from wherever. And that's not bad.
No, it's human nature.
But that's recruiting, too. I get it. And he recruits nationally and internationally. That's great. That's the scope you have. But those fans want you to win. And I think that's got to be something that he reassesses about himself.
You know what's funny? I've kind of thinking about this. I've been workshopping this take for a while. And that's that, Lamont Paris helped break John Calipari because he never got back to the Final Four after that undefeated team got beat by Wisconsin. And like that game, and I read a lot of Kyle Tucker at The Athletic. He's about as in tune with that program as anybody else. I would even put him up there with Matt Jones and all the Kentucky radio fanboys. Like they're in tuned, but Kyle Tucker is in tuned and objective. And Kyle has been pretty vocal about his thoughts that that game is what hurt Calipari a lot. And that game hurt him so bad to he change certain approaches to recruiting, and that they haven't been able to get back to the Final Four since then. And a lot of that, and I can totally see it. I mean, they had all their eggs in that basket of being the first undefeated team since 76 Indiana to win a title. They were very invested in that. That was a team that was running 10 deep because they got an entire freshman class almost to come back 1 year after the next. They had veterans on that team. They had like 4 7-footers on that team. That was the one you should win, a national title. And they didn't do it. And they looked at it as an abject failure. And John Calipari, like ever since then, the recruiting pitch changed. I'm getting these guys to the NBA. Ever since then, his tournament failures really started to compile on themselves, and he was never the same since. So work with me here as I workshop this take that the men's basketball coach here in Columbia helped construct the demise of the Calipari era in Lexington.
That's fair.
There's some credence to that.
I think there absolutely is. Again, Scott Drew has reportedly been offered the job. We don't know that for certain as of yet. There was a picture of him with a major booster in Waco today, having lunch at a Tex-Mex place. So
looked good.
Take it as you will. We'll see. Come back on the other side. Why the Super League idea for college football won't work, but one aspect that I want to work for the sport. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. I do want to remind you of a couple of things. First off, tonight at 6, Carolina Calls with Mark Kingston and the voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott. But you know what? Hold on. I'll find out where. I know they're in the Vista somewhere. Liberty? I better be careful. Now I said it out loud. There's
one way to find out.
Hang on.
Gotta go.
Hang on. Derek tweeted it out earlier. Yeah, I'll just do that for you real quick here.
Well, I bet I can find it faster.
Yeah, well, let's see. Yeah, yes.
That is where they do the basketball ones.
Yes. Liberty, which is about 4 blocks that way. So go down and see them tonight at 6. And speaking of the Liberty Tap Room and the Columbia Craft Call-In Show, this is what segues are all about.
That's right. Don't have to write it.
The craft beer card is back. You can spend $30 at a brewery. Well, you get $30 at a brewery, basically, is what it is.
Yes.
You get, it's like credit. You pay $79. You get $30 in credit, basically, at 12 different craft beer locations all across the Midlands of South Carolina. Now, I can do that math. So if I went to 3 of them, that'd be $90 that I could spend, and I only paid $79. And then I've got, like, all this money left over to use at the other ones. And that's...
I will
economics.
Say, I got, as like a late Christmas gift from Terry last year, one of those beer cards, and they expired in like 2 weeks. He goes, I don't know if you can get all of those in 2 weeks. And I said, buddy, watch me. Watch me.
So, and your Uber bill went up, but that's okay.
That's right. Yeah. See, that went up, but because I saved so much money.
It's like not even a wash.
I'm basically getting, a free beer at these places, and I just hopped from place to place, and eventually I couldn't spell my own name after like, 12 hours? It was great. It was
what
awesome.
I do at Epcot.
That's right. Oh, that sounds fun. I've never done that as an adult. I've never even been to Disney as an adult.
You should go, dude.
But.
I'm a fanatic. I am why the word fan is shortened. Yes, I am. I've not completed the challenge. I'll just leave it at that.
What the details of the challenge?
Doesn't mean I didn't attempt it.
Well, that's right. You just weren't successful.
It's World Showcase is big, and after a while, I did see somebody that said just get like beer flights and share them so that you're not drinking the whole 16-ounce or whatever.
What's the fun in that?
So anyway. There you go.
Challenge accepted. I'm doing it.
But go to 1075thegame.com. Click on Sweet Deals. You could get our latest installment of the craft beer card. All right, so the Super League of college football isn't going to work for a whole host of reasons. Number one, excuse me, this would take a reworking of everybody's television deals. And as most of you know, almost everybody's television deals have either just been reworked or, in the case of the Atlantic Coast Conference, just extends so far out that Disney's going to go, nah.
They've already had enough trouble trying to change that with its members. Right. So let's not touch that one.
Yeah. But that's one reason that it's not going to work. But one of the things that the proponents of the Super League of College Football said would be great is that there'd be one umbrella or organization doing this, and they'd be negotiating from a different point of view, and that the television providers would have more great content week in and week out, because you'd only have these 80 schools playing each other. Therefore, you're going to have better games because you don't have as many of the G5. You don't have any more of the FCS. Okay, yes, that part I love, and I've been banging that drum for a while. So here's what we can have. We can have the best of this. We can keep our conference affiliations as they are. Let's go to a uniform scheduling format. 9 games in your conference, 2 games against what is now the Power 4, RIP Pac-12, and 1 game against the G5. Let's just do that. Let's just go ahead and adopt that now. I just need somebody to tell me why that's hard. Right? And then TV gets what they want with what they have already paid for. And we, the fan, get more good games. I know that maybe some of you with your own school would be like, but you gotta you sometimes eventually you got to jump off the high dive, man.
What's really funny is if that were to have operated in a Super League environment where we have there was 8 groups of 10, and then you'd have essentially a power 7, I guess, and then you have 5 to 10 teams in that last league. That's like the relegation league. Let's say for instance, Temple was one of those schools. My God, I'd love to be Temple getting all those calls from schools trying to get them to check a box off because they would want to, get as easy as a, non-league game as possible. That phone would be blowing up.
Yeah. But, it would take the FCS out of the equation. Again, make those spring games. I've got a way to keep them getting some of the cash that's being generated. I don't want them to die out. I just don't want them on big-time schedules anymore. But we can do that main component.
Right before rivalry week.
Right, yeah. We can do it now and still get this done and still have a 16-school playoff eventually where you don't have to worry about it as much. That's just what I think. Hour 3 coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to report to you that are causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon. We still have one on I-20 eastbound just before the White Pond Road exit 87. That's causing some pretty significant traffic back up there on 20. Here in Richland County, accident on Clemson Road at I-20 and one on Sloan Road at Hardscrabble Road are causing some mild traffic back up. And the good news, we had a couple earlier this afternoon on 26, both east and westbound at South Carolina 202 near exit 85. An accident and an obstruction on the roadway causing both of those. But since then, both accidents have been cleared. So on I-26 East and westbound at South Carolina 202, traffic is moving pretty smoothly again through those areas.
It is time for the headlines on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's also the final hour of the postgame show. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. We'll start with South Carolina baseball. The Gamecocks defeating North Carolina last night, 2-1 at Truist Field in downtown Charlotte. Again, 2-1. Pitchers duel throughout. Carolina scored early in the third. North Carolina tied the game in the seventh on a Colby Wilkerson double, but it was Dylan Brewer who went 3 for 4, hit a go-ahead double in the eighth to put Carolina back up right after North Carolina had scored to tie the ball game. Carolina answered in the top of the eighth, and Connor McCreary struck out 5 in the final 2 1/3 innings of the ball game. And Carolina defeats UNC for the 4th time in 5 years. Gamecocks are currently 23-10 on the season. They will head to Gainesville this weekend to take on number 24 Florida, who is scuffling. As we have said a couple of times already today, Florida was swept at Missouri and last night lost to Florida State by a final of 19-4. So both of these schools' baseball programs looking to feel better about themselves. Both of them are currently at 6-6 in conference play. Both of them as well strike out a lot. They're leaving guys on base. And that's been a big issue for a lot of people right now. Got to find a way to bring them home. So they're getting them on. Got to bring them around if you want to keep winning.
Classic anxiety series. And football, I've heard the term anxiety game for two teams that have their seasons on the brink. I wouldn't say these two teams have them on the brink, but they're going in the wrong direction in conference play. And the road's not getting any easier for either of them. So I'll stamp the label of anxiety series on this one.
If this was, I think it is. You and I talked about this earlier. Look again. Someone is factually. This is fact. Someone's going to win this series,
unless Bud Selig's in attendance and calls for a tie. That would never happen, though.
No, luckily that is not going to happen. So someone's going to win this series. Now, if somebody sweeps it, then the loser is feeling a lot worse. I don't expect a sweep. I expect someone, no prediction here, but I expect someone to win this series 2-1, which means that team comes out at 8-7 to the losers 7-8. There's still plenty of time. Again, you're at the halfway point of the conference season. I think it would be even more anxious, I suppose, Elijah, if, say, these two schools were playing at a point where it's, the 9th series of the year and they're both 12-12.
Would be a little worse at that point.
Or something like that. But I'm with you. I think right now, neither one of them is where they expect to be. Florida is no different than South Carolina with its minimum annual expectations. The Florida Gator program also expects to host in the first round of the tournament every year. Florida may even be at a point where some people down there expect them to be a super regional host, which they were last year against South Carolina. Again, that's putting a lot on a program to expect that annually. But Florida's been there enough to where they might. Regardless, both these teams certainly expect to be home for the first round.
And not just the expectation of the program. They got a player who is like the college baseball version of Shohei Ohtani and Jack Caglianone.
Jack Caglianone, yeah.
And that adds another level of pressure because he's considered to be, I guess, maybe the most Ohtani-esque prospect to come out of the collegiate ranks.
I hope it works
ever
for
since
him.
Ohtani's had his rise, because there's always discussion if he'll pitch and hit. at the next level. But the fact that it's even discussed brings us another level of expectation with this Florida team that goes beyond just what the program's expectations are.
I think one of the differences, and this is just my opinion on Caglione real quick, and we'll talk more about him later in the week when we get closer to the series. Ohtani basically told Major League Baseball teams, I'm coming, but I'm only going to come to you if you not just tell me I'm going to do both, but I'm here to tell you I'm going to do both. And should you deny me, especially the opportunity to pitch, I don't know this for sure, but I would think there might be like an out in the contract or something that was there, in the early days. Like I'll just leave. I'm coming, but I'm going to hit, and I'm going to be a starting pitcher. And I am good enough to do both. And he is. Unfortunately, he had, surgery and he can't pitch this season, but he's hitting well in the early going for the Dodgers. But yeah, this is a big series coming up this weekend. So again, maybe Carolina catches Florida at the right time, maybe not. We'll talk about a little bit more baseball for you throughout the rest of the week. Continuing our integrated media headlines of the day, Mayor Daniel Rickeman and Columbia City Council will now officially be hosting, I guess. Is that what you do? Do they host a parade? Throw a parade? I guess you throw
a parade.
Throw a parade?
Like a party. Do you host a party?
You host a party. You throw a parade.
Throw a parade.
Okay.
Fair.
I'm with you there. For the 2024 Women's National Basketball Champion Gamecocks, the parade will be held on Sunday afternoon. It will start at 2 o'clock on Main Street. It will run from the 1700 block down at Laurel and will conclude at the State House. The team will then have a pep rally. Mayor Rickeman will be speaking. Coach Tanner will be speaking. Coach Dawn will be speaking. And it says selected team members. Nah, just let them all talk. Just let them all talk.
Give them all a microphone.
They all won a championship. And let's face it, on this team, everybody plays, man. Let them all talk.
Though.
Let them all talk. In addition, according to the press release from Carolina, the city will invite local elected officials, government entities, and community partners to join the mayor, the council, and other university officials to be in the parade, along with some former Carolina basketball players, the Carolina band, the cheerleaders, and, of course, Cocky. So, again, Sunday afternoon, parade begins at 2 at Main and Laurel, concludes at the State House. So, basically, I guess, you get out of church and head downtown.
That's right. Terry and I will also be in the parade.
Oh, yeah? Are you in the parade?
We're driving the truck.
Yeah, in the parade?
Through it, yeah. That was the word that I received. So,
look at you.
Say what's up. You see the 107.5 The Game truck drive by.
Are you like throwing candy and trinkets, or how's that work?
Might have some Budweisers in the car. I don't know.
No, you can't do that. Can't do that.
For a certain fee.
Yeah, it might hurt somebody.
That's why you got to catch it.
Or help somebody. It all depends.
That's right. Life's about perspective.
Sure. Pulling for you.
And I'm always carrying butterscotch candies too, and I know that's the one everybody wants. So
wow, would you learn that from your great grandma?
Yeah,
something like that.
Always have them on tap.
Always had some candy.
Yeah, that was the church candy. That was the best stuff.
Butterscotch, the coffee nips.
I'm a big fan of the
I like the hard candy, the cinnamon candies.
Not a big cinnamon candy guy.
No, okay. Jolly Rancher. I like the green.
Ooh,
the apple. It tastes nothing like an apple, but
it doesn't taste like anything that they're actually supposed.
I like
to
the
say
green.
It tastes like, but
I like the green the best, followed by red.
Yeah, I'm not a big Jolly Rancher guy anymore. Okay. But as a kid, was all about it.
That's cool.
I stick to my butterscotch candies now for the most part.
Yeah, those are good, man.
Werther's.
Yeah. Oh, that's the A list.
That's the good stuff.
Expensive.
Saw Ed Bird near the bag of them once, and I said, Ed Bird, you got it going on. That's the play.
I don't know why I'm saying this during a news thing, but I just remember, like, that's expensive. Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart had an Olympic highlight show from the last Olympics. They're doing it again this summer, which is going to be, it was so good. But they were talking about equestrian. And they're like, how'd they get the horses to Japan? And so he's talking to his producer off camera, right? And then he said, and this is Snoop, who is worth probably 9 figures, right?
A lot of money, yeah.
And he said, they flew the horses on Emirates? And he goes, that's expensive. It was great.
I I'm gonna try to find.
I was like,
that
Snoop, you could charter an Emirates plane, man. But he did. He did it. He did the.
He had to double take
pull
a
back.
little
He was like, on Emirates, that's expensive. So you buy the Werthers, that's expensive. Those are good though. All right, that's there you go. That's part of what we do around here, kids. It is official now. John Calipari is the new men's basketball coach at the University of Arkansas. That was made official earlier this morning. The 65-year-old Calipari signs a 5-year deal. $7 million per season. He was making $8.5 million, by the way, at UK. It also includes a $1 million signing bonus, a $500,000 retention bonus each year of the contract, plus incentives for making the NCAA tournament and then for advancing into the tournament. There are also, according to this report, 2 automatic rollover years for NCAA tournament appearances that could extend the deal to 2031. So it's basically 7.5 plus incentives, because all you got to do is stay and they'll give you another $500,000, a retention bonus. Do we have those?
If we do, I haven't been told.
Is
about
that why I keep getting T-shirts?
Our retention bonus actually comes in T-shirts and coupons.
That's good. I didn't get any coupons. What'd you get?
Oh, I got a coupon.
Oh, man.
That's why they can't pull me out of O'Hara's. I'm there all the time.
All right. What
Got so many coupons.
am I doing wrong?
And beer cards.
By the way, there are reports, not really easy to confirm, that Scott Drew of Baylor has been offered the Kentucky job. But one report said that he had 24 hours. You know, you have 24 hours to tell Kentucky that he wanted the job, which, again, seems not cool if it's true. And I don't really think Mitch Barnhart would do that. Although I did joke earlier, if he had offered the job to Bruce Pearl and said you have 24 minutes to accept the job, he might have known in 24 seconds that Bruce was going to take the job.
It almost sounds like he's being held hostage. You have 24 hours
Right.
to accept this job.
We'll see. If you didn't hear, by the way, Dan Hurley hasn't put out a statement like Nate Oates did. Nate Oates did put out a statement, I'm staying at Alabama. Dan Hurley basically said that in postgame after he won another championship where he was going to get a raise anyway. Now he's just going to get a bigger raise, so he's not leaving UConn. Billy Donovan's got the Chicago Bulls poised for the play-in game in the Eastern Conference, so he's got playoffs to worry about.
Poised is a very nice way of putting it.
Thank you. But they play the Hawks, man. You better win. You're playing the Hawks. The Hawks only have like 3 players and a manager.
And still won 36 games in the Eastern Conference.
I didn't even know they still had a team, man. I thought they were like the hockey team. I thought they moved somewhere else.
The Thrashers actually just rebranded as the Hawks.
So anyway, I don't think it's going to be Billy D either. But it could be. But I think it's going to be Scott Drew or Bruce Pearl. That's what I think.
Yeah. And I'm telling you.
And if Scott Drew says no, I'm calling Bruce Pearl because I don't want to get told no a bunch. I've technically been told no twice.
Bruce Pearl might be calling you.
Yeah. Oh, he probably is. But, I mean, have you not technically been told no twice? Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. Dan Hurley and Nate Oates have told you, I'm not taking your job.
You're like 3 more no's away from the 2017 Tennessee football coaching search.
And after telling John Calipari you were going to keep him, he left. So that's really being told no 3 times.
Man, talk about John Calipari having the upper hand right there.
Yeah.
It's like, you wanted me out so bad? Okay, fine.
leaving.
I know I'm leaving.
Yeah.
You're not firing me.
Okay, I'm giving you something to do
I'm
with.
saying no to you.
So we'll see how that one goes. Hopefully we get that news before the end of the week. Speaking of basketball legends, Tara Vanderveer announced her retirement last night. She has been coaching college basketball for 45 years, most of those years, of course, at Stanford, 38 of them to be exact, where she won 3 national championships, including one just a couple of seasons ago. She's won a bunch of Naismith awards, and she was already put into the Basketball Hall of Fame. She is the all-time leader in women's basketball victories with 1,216. And I know that Dawn Staley holds a special place for Tara Vanderveer. Years ago, when Dawn was just getting started, they played Stanford. Stanford beat them. Dawn had Tara come and speak to her team, Dawn's team, about a few things. and said it was something that really changed everybody. So I know she holds her in very high regard. There you go. That's our Integrated Media headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media. And, of course, the guys at Pro Swing right next door. We saw them yesterday. 803-948-8327 for any and all of your home theater needs, from just moving stuff around the house to full installation of the system to outdoor systems, home security, and so much more. I can't live without them. You'll feel the same way once you use them. 803-948-8327. That's our good friends at Integrated Media. Come back on the other side. Shane Beamer continues to give us updates on what's going on after a scrimmage, and another one coming up. Gamecock football with Coach coming up on the Postgame Show. Welcome back in. Postgame Show continues on this Wednesday afternoon along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. That was a fun news segment. Thanks for the laughs. That was good. Needed that.
Emirates. That's expensive.
Yeah, Elijah just pulled up some of the Snoop Dogg, Kevin Hart Olympic highlights from last time. They're and listen, they're not safe for the kids, but they are, in my opinion, they are brilliantly funny. I remember the first time I watched them years ago. I swear I watched it like over and over and over and over. It was so funny. So you can check those out on YouTube. It's probably the easiest place to find them. And Elijah and I were also talking about Snoop's animal. He calls it, what is it, Planet Earth. And they're on Jimmy Kimmel mostly, I think. I don't know if he does it. I know they're part of what Jimmy Kimmel does.
Yeah, I see a lot of just the clips on YouTube.
Yeah, but Planet Earth. And I won't try to sit here and even describe them. Just look it up. Just look up. Look, if you want to type it in, make it easier, Snoop Dogg Animal Planet. That's probably the easiest way to find all of the clips, even though it's not technically Animal Planet. But YouTube will help you find it that way.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like, I don't know, 10 or 15 of them. They're usually like a minute long.
Oh, yeah. They're not too terrible, but they're hilarious.
They are. Some of them, some are funnier than others. Some of them are like, I can't breathe. I'm laughing so hard. So check those out. Have some fun with that. In the meantime, we'll talk a little Carolina football. Coach Shane Beamer speaking to the media after the first scrimmage he actually spoke a couple days after it. And there'll be another one, I believe, tomorrow, right? I think they're having one tomorrow.
Maybe.
I think it's tomorrow. We had a couple of these cuts for you yesterday, but did not have a chance to get to all of them. We talked about quarterbacks and wide receivers yesterday, and I know some of the other shows on the program have done some of these as well, but let's let you hear about what Shane says in terms of assessing his new running back room, where a couple of guys, obviously, Rocket Sanders, Juju McDowell, are done for the spring. So what's it looking like at running back?
No other position right now, maybe in time for sure. I just mentioned wanting to get those receivers involved and getting the ball in their hands. So, like we've done in the past, we'll be creative with how we do that going forward. But no, not really. Braswell was back on Saturday, so DJ was able to scrimmage, which was great for him. Oscar was out there as well. Obviously, Juju didn't, and Rocket didn't, but Jawarm was out there, so we were able to get those guys work and didn't say, okay, we're not going to do this because we're banged up at the running back position. We, called runs like we always do, called passes like we always do, and all those guys, certainly flashed at times.
So, again, how you're going to look at running backs this spring relative to this summer is going to be an interesting one. I think for now, it's really more about, all these guys, listen, Juju and Rocket are around. Rocket at least has some familiarity with Dowell, even if it wasn't Dowell's offense. It was more Kendall Briles' offense at Arkansas. But there is familiarity with a lot of the terminology and some of the things that Dowell has brought over as he blends what he did in the NFL with what he's doing in college. It was interesting to hear. I hope you all got to hear Tyler Thigpen yesterday, by the way. It was great. I know Elijah put that up on the podcast page. But Tyler was kind enough to come join us out at Pro Swing yesterday and played for Dowell Loggins. Dowell was his quarterback's coach his final year in the NFL at Cleveland. And he made a point of how, he knew from what Dowell was doing that he had spoken with him before he took this job about how Dowell wanted to simplify things. So I think this is more about learning. Oscar Attaway is getting a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm. Good running back.
Yeah, and I look, I'm not here to predict anything or support one over another. That's not my job. I'm just telling you that the people I'm talking to had already seen the film before he transferred. And he played at a good school. He wasn't playing, with all due respect, and this isn't because Mario had a great year too, but he wasn't playing D2 ball. Mm-hmm. And Mario shined. I like what Mario Anderson did. But Oscar Attaway played at North Texas, and that's a higher level of football.
Oh, they win. They've been doing a lot of winning in recent years.
So, we'll see. DJ Braswell was around last year, and I was a freshman last year. It just didn't take, and it may this year. Again, what Juju does is, I think, very role specific, and Rocket Sanders needs to trust his body again. because he had, shoulder injuries for running backs. I don't care what you are position-wise, but that's going to get hit a lot. And it's going to hurt. Even once it gets all nice and healthy, you're going to get hit a lot, and it's going to hurt.
Which is why Oscar Attaway catching the attention of the coaches and the people that you talk to is it's a big plus. There's not a lot you can gain from a lot of these practices, but look, you got Oscar Attaway to maybe take some of that attention off Rocket Sanders, because look, if you get even 80% of what Rocket was 2 years ago at Arkansas, you've got yourself an all-SEC running back.
Yeah.
You also need a complementary back to be able to show up different looks, to be able to put in different skill sets. And Oscar Attaway was a perfect number 2 back at North Texas and still got his, So the fact that he's being that impressive now, even in spring practice with a different, workload, rep load, is a very positive sign for the South Carolina offense. Because I think going into this, we knew the running back position would be probably your strongest as a group. I think that kind of,
in terms of the depth in the room, yeah.
I think that kind of solidifies it if you're really liking what you're hearing and seeing from Oscar Attaway so far.
One more here from Coach. Shane was asked about the number of freshmen that are already enrolled at Carolina this season and what they can benefit from in the spring.
Yeah, it's huge. You think about it. We started, I think it was 5 true freshmen last season. Nicholas Harbor, not here for spring practice. Tro, not here for spring practice. Tree was not here for spring practice. I think Judge was, but that's pretty much every freshman you started as a true freshman in this league. They didn't get to go through spring practice. They just started practice in August, and then a month later they're playing in SEC football games in Athens. So it's huge to be able to go through spring ball. We were talking about it yesterday I was with the offensive staff. I mean, you look out there and you got Josiah Thompson and Cam Pringle and Blake Franks, who should still be in high school taking classes at Woodland High School and Dillon High School and Greenville High School. And instead, they're here going through spring practice, but not just going through spring practice. They're going through spring practice having to block Tonka Hemingway and TJ Sanders and Boogie Huntley and DeAndre Jules, guys that are 5 years older than them and have played college football at a high level for a while now. And obviously the moment's not too big for them, but they're going through some growing pains, and they're going to be so much better for it come August because they're going through that right now and not going through it for the first time in August. So they're making progress, and really proud of those guys. We've talked about it in here. It's just so beneficial that of all the scholarship guys that we signed, everyone's here right now except for Matthew Fuller, Jalua Solomon, and Michael Smith. 3 guys, and that's it. Every other freshman's going through spring ball, which is huge for us, being able to practice the way we want to from an organizational standpoint, but then those guys getting that experience in order to be ready to go this season.
I suppose it's a twofold thing there, too. He mentioned a lot of the guys that ended up playing meaningful snaps for South Carolina through much of the season last year that weren't here. You'd like to be able to get those guys coached up this spring, but not have to rely on them in the fall. So, once you do, and you will ultimately, because this team, we talked about it so much last season. This team's roster last year, between first and second year players, be they true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, true sophomores, was more than 50 players. I think it was 53 of the total. Now, that includes all of the players, walk-ons and stuff too. But even a majority of those guys are scholarship guys. That team last year was so young and relatively inexperienced. So you do need this. And again, it comes back around to I won't bang the drum, but this is why I'd love a real game. I'd like to see what you've accomplished. I think he would too, against somebody else. Well,
that's the thing too. I mean, Josiah Thompson, an incredibly highly touted offensive lineman, is blocking against guys that are, like Shane said, 5 years his senior. And,
right.
You're going to get your tail kicked in practice a lot. How have you applied the tail kicking in practice to a game where you're going against somebody else in a different uniform, where you're going to be expected to be the tail kicker, not be the tail kickee? So that's probably where you'd like to be able to see that. But for now, I mean, this is a good growth element to someone like Josiah's game.
We'll come back around with the drive around the SEC. I got a couple of more things I want to get to from Coach Beamer. We'll assess what happened in baseball last night, look ahead to tonight's SEC baseball action and the latest standings. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Oh, I've been telling you for years about all the great work that AAA Heating and Air does to keep you and your family nice and comfortable in your home all year round. We're getting ready to have the air conditioner cranking for the next several months. But did you also know that AAA is now providing both residential and professional electrical services? Things like panel upgrades, lighting installation, whether it's security lighting, decorative lighting, both. They can get that done for you. Generator installation. Already have a lot of those things. Electrical repairs now part of what AAA is doing too. When it comes to a brand new heating and air system, don't worry about the cost right now. Guaranteed financing options, no payments, no interest through the next 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor guarantee. I love what Roy and Dana and the crew at AAA have done for my family, and I know you will too. Log on to call AAAtoday.com for a free quote, or call them up at 803-677-1500. AAA Heating and Air.
From the WIS Traffic Center, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to report to you that are causing some delays on the roadways here in the Midlands. We'll start in Lexington County. An accident has recently been reported on Old Cherokee Road at North Lake Drive, and that's causing some mild traffic backup. We also have a couple here in Richland County, one on Sloan Road at Hardscrabble Road, one on Rabin Road at Farrow Road. I botched that. One on Highway 1 at Augusta Road near Clemson Road. And then the good news, we also have a couple accidents that have been cleared in the last 30 minutes, and those are two that are on I-26 east and westbound over at South Carolina 202 near exit 85.
And we'll start with a little LSU football note. I guess he'll be a sophomore this coming season, but linebacker Jackson Howard has announced that he is entering the portal. He did play some last year for the Tigers, but for whatever reasons here in the spring, he's decided that he is going to be entering the portal. No word at this point in time where he's headed.
As far away from Brian Kelly's fake Southern accent as possible.
I suppose so. Interesting. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he knows he wasn't going to play. Go ahead and do it now. On that note, that's what I want to get to with Shane, and we'll have that for you coming up in just a second. On that note being transfers, not
Brian Kelly's fake Southern accent.
Yes, not Brian Kelly. Or specifically Jackson Howard.
Neither. But big picture stuff.
But it has to do with spring transfers. We'll get to that for you in just a second. Baseball, last night. A couple of upsets and also a couple of blowouts. First, and I appreciate Elijah Campbell knowing this. He's our mid-major guru, although I'm not even sure this is a mid-major.
No, it's OVC. That's the Ohio Valley Conference.
Well, that's mid-major.
It's very, very, very mid-major.
Okay, yeah. Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville.
That's right.
SIUE.
Nailed it.
Goes to Como and beats Missouri 5-4.
OVC.
I mean, after Missouri sweeps Florida, and then you lose. And by the way, both these teams have losing records. SIUE came in at 11-21, left at 12-21.
The Ohio Valley Conference punching bag beats the SEC punching bag.
Yeah, Missouri 15-19.
Superior conference
overall. Let's see. LSU put a hurting on McNeese State, and I mean a hurting.
Will Wade ain't walking through that door.
He is not. 16-0, the final score there. Samford of Birmingham beats Kentucky 9-7. Man. Samford.
Cortland Finnegan not on the roster.
If you tell me Stanford did it, I still might not believe you based on how well Kentucky's been playing this season. But that was Kentucky's just their 5th loss of the year.
They have as many losses to Samford as they do SEC schools.
We've talked a lot today about South Carolina's 2-1 win over North Carolina last night. South Alabama beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa 5-4.
Good Lord.
Arkansas beat San Jose State. I think they're over here for another game. Let me double-check that just a second because that's like, man, that's a weird midweek game. But Arkansas beats the San Jose State Spartans 5-1. Auburn falls at home to Alabama State 3-2.
Yuck.
A&M edges UTSA 6-5. I know that's San Antonio, so that one I knew.
They are the Roadrunners.
Thank you very much.
Meet.
Tennessee. Oh, man, come on, Tennessee. Y'all. See, Vitello is he would do this to a little league team. Tennessee beats Alabama A&M 20-2. They scored 9 runs in the 6th inning. He's just mean. Elijah, I'm sorry to tell you. You probably already knew this though, but Vanderbilt beat your alma mater, MTSU, 14-1.
Yeah, that wasn't even close. That game was over by the 2nd inning. I didn't keep tabs.
7-0 after 1 and 10-0 after 2.
I believe they played that at First Horizon Park with the Sounds play.
That's cool.
That's a cool place to get your butt kicked. Beautiful, beautiful ballpark.
And Georgia last night beat Kennesaw State by a final of 15-4. Let's see. And tonight, actually, that's what I thought. They are playing 2. Arkansas, it's over. They played a day game. That's nice. Arkansas just paid San Jose State to fly over to Fayetteville, get beat twice, and leave.
That's nice of them.
Yeah, Arkansas.
They accommodated them nicely.
Arkansas won today in the getaway game of the midweek series.
The getaway midweek series
8-2. Arkansas improves to 29-3. San Jose State falls to 12-21. I hope San Jose State got a lot of money and a lot of free chicken.
I do too.
Since the Tyson people are giving away chicken this week.
I hope they got a lot of Dino Nuggies.
And some Walmart gift cards.
That would make that worth it.
That's right. So there you go.
Do it for less.
All right, let's get you back into it. One more from Shane Beamer. Again, I just mentioned a player transferring in the spring. It's most of your transfer portal transactions will be done after the football season and before the new semester starts, but there is going to be one more opening of the transfer portal after spring. And Shane Beamer was asked yesterday, how do you look at that particular angle? In other words, how do you look at your team and what's available in the spring?
Yeah, it's a challenge. it's a challenge. I mean, we still have spring practice going on. Our guys are finishing up exams right after the spring game. You've got your own roster to worry about. You're having individual meetings as well, and want everybody that's on our roster to come back and continue the work that they've put in since January. But you look at what's out there, and if there's a situation the guy fits what we want, what we're about, and can make our team better, that's my job as the head coach to bring in people that can help us after spring practice, like we did last season with JT Gear. Came in after spring practice and did some really good things for us last year, and will continue to. But it's tough as a coach because you truly don't know. You're going through spring ball right now, but you truly don't know who your team is going to be until the middle of May. And I say that like the portal closes on April 30th, but if there's somebody in the portal that we decide to bring in, then you're going to bring them in on a visit in May, and then finally, okay, you get to the first, second week of May, all right, this is the 2024 Gamecock football team, and that's a challenge as well. It's kind of a lot like a NFL team that's going through off-season program, OTAs, mini camps. They don't really know who's going to be on the New England Patriots until training camp's over type thing. And we're fortunate we don't have to wait right before the first game to know that. We wait till the middle of May, but that's a challenge as a coach, but part of it. And you're right, we're all learning and going through it the first time and trying to figure out the best way to maximize the situation for your particular team.
Yeah, if you can find somebody, sure. I think he's right. I wouldn't, if I'm a Gamecock fan right now, I'm not thinking that Shane and his staff will be scouring the spring portal. It's going to have to make sense because he just talked about one of the reasons I wanted you to hear that one too is it sort of goes, hand in hand with having the guys that are younger on your team going through spring ball. Now, look, a transfer guy is going to be someone who's older and more mature physically and mentally, but has not yet gone through your program. So if it's there, I don't know where the positions of need might be. I mean, that's another thing you need to assess. I mean, look, you can, again, I'll always come back around to more good players, but where? Adding another running back now? No, probably not. Adding another wide receiver right now? Yeah, maybe.
We already added a lot of bodies.
But they have. There's a lot, yeah.
They went with a lot of volume in hopes that one of them will hit to replace that Xavier Legette.
It's like panning for gold, right? You sift through and hope there's a nugget or two in there. That's what you've got to look for right now. And you also hope that, again, a bunch of those young guys, and I know some of them left, but a bunch of those young guys that you had last year have all developed accordingly in every aspect of life and the game and everything else. Because like we said, well over half the roster last year was first or second year football players. And that's a big ask in the Southeastern Conference when your schedule also includes Clemson and North Carolina. So it's something to think about when you look ahead to 2024. And the Gamecocks do have an incredibly difficult schedule. But you know what? South Carolina always has an incredibly difficult schedule. So
it's a differently difficult schedule.
That's our drive around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon, the lot packed with inventory. See why Herndon Chevy makes you smile. Come back with a couple of things around the NFL. One, a familiar SEC name got paid. And where is the most exotic locale the NFL could choose for one of its regular season games? We'll get into that for you as the postgame show continues. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show on this Wednesday. Again, tomorrow, expected to be joined by Gamecock men's golf coach Bill McDonald to help us break down day one of the Masters, which gets underway about an hour west of us in Augusta. Although, does look like tomorrow could be a little rainy across eastern Georgia. I'm looking at a weather report right now. I see my friend Jim Gandy up there talking about a little bit of that. So we'll see. But some rain moving in tonight. You know what? It doesn't bother me too much, only from the standpoint that just means like compacted golf action later in the week.
Starting earlier.
Yeah. I do love the Masters. You ever been to Augusta National?
Never have.
Yeah, you need to go. We'll work on that for you.
It'll be fun.
I say it every time, and I'll say it to Bill tomorrow and to all of you. So for those of you who hear it now, you may hear it again tomorrow. But the two things about Augusta National that struck me more than anything else, yes, the pimento cheese is really good, and yes, the beer is cheap. And no, you cannot take your phone in. One is the respect that the throngs have, because I had been to the Heritage many times before I had ever been to the Masters. The Heritage is it's not like that thing out in Phoenix.
Oh, the waste management?
Yeah.
Where it's
the wasted management.
Wasted management, yeah, that is more accurate.
But it's a party. The Masters is like church.
That's what I've heard.
It is, man. It is just it's I mean, when something cool happens, people cheer and clap and yell. But there's none of that, idiotic get in the hole and all that stupid crap.
None of that.
Which I just ugh. Everybody's very respectful, because if you're not, you know what happens?
They kick you out.
Moose and Rocco come.
They're not here to collect gambling.
And they're
bets.
not here to get your checkbook. Secondly, what you don't realize until you get there, because TV, even HD doesn't do it justice, is the elevation changes throughout the 18 holes of Augusta National. There are some places where you are way high up and some places where you are way down low, and several points in between. But
ears be popping.
It is not, again, like Hilton Head. Again, I've been to Hilton Head. I've been to Harbor Town. I've been to some other golf courses, too, and played, right? But, like, for a PGA event, like, Hilton Head's flat because, it's basically on the other side of the beach. I mean, Augusta National, though, man, and there's a lot of courses like that in Columbia, too, because Columbia rolls, but Augusta rolls. So, anyway, those are the two things. But, again, go get a pimento cheese sandwich. But y'all have fun.
Makes me
It's always a good time. All right, a couple of quick things. First off, the Braves-Mets game has been postponed because of rain in Atlanta. It will be made up on September the 26th. So they split the week. Again, the Mets ruining the 50th anniversary celebration of Henry Aaron's historic home run.
See, that's what they do. They ruin stuff like that
The
and
Mets,
then completely
man.
underachieved during the season.
Stinking Mets.
That was their World Series.
Basically. Let's just go in there and do that. The Braves did win last night. All right, so we knew already that the Eagles were going to be the, quote, home team at a game in Brazil to start the regular season. We have more details now. First off, they clearly want Brazil to have not just a game, but a game. The Philadelphia Eagles, it was announced today, will be playing the Green Bay Packers.
2 playoff teams.
To open the regular season. It'll be played in Sao Paulo at the home of Corinthians, which is one of Brazil's 3 or 4 biggest soccer clubs.
And a book in the Bible.
It is, yes.
A couple of them. It's got its own sequel.
That's right. I was going to say, it does. There's a couple. The Packers, Mark Murphy, who basically is like their owner, even though he's not at all an owner because you can't do that, he said expressed concerns about the logistics of this game for his team, saying, quote, "We're very supportive of international play. The one issue with Green Bay, though, is the size of our airport and the size of our runway. And we want to make sure that we're not at a competitive disadvantage in terms of how long it's going to take us to get to Brazil." Dude, put the team on a bus a day early, wait for it, drive to Milwaukee.
Where there is a larger airport.
Big airport.
So dumb.
I mean, come on, man.
What he should be more concerned about is the ban on green that there is at that stadium, because Corinthians has an arch rival who wears green, and they have quite literally banned the color green in that stadium.
Yeah, the NFL didn't think about that either. I wouldn't think at all. But it will be the first Friday night regular season game in the National Football League since 1970, which means from when they would have played that, if it opened the season, I wasn't born.
Ooh.
So that makes it old and a long time ago. So there you go. And finally, I mentioned this earlier, a familiar name. Now, Josh Allen got paid, but not that Josh Allen. All right, not that Josh Allen, not the quarterback of the Bills, but the former Kentucky superstar linebacker. Josh Allen reached an agreement today with the Jags on a 5-year, $150 million contract, $88 million of which is guaranteed.
Know what I think about that?
Emirates,
they fly
that's
the horse
expensive.
That's expensive.
He had the franchise tag put on him back in March, but they wanted to get this done. He wanted to get paid a lot. He's not the highest paid at his position right now. Nick Bosa is number one at an average of $34.2 million per.
Also expensive.
Chris Jones is second at $31.8. His deal needed to get done. And now Josh Allen, the third highest paid defensive player in the league at $30 million per season. Again, $88 million of his contract is guaranteed. He's only 26. He'll learn all this.
Oh yeah,
right.
And he's still playing very well.
If he had played on the franchise tag, for what it's worth to you, he would have made $24 million. So sometimes you try to find that number. This is a big increase in terms of what the franchise tag would have paid him. He's good, man. He was great at Kentucky.
He's a monster. He was everywhere at Kentucky.
He was great at Kentucky.
Everywhere.
Good stuff today. We'll talk a lot of Masters tomorrow. More Carolina baseball and football notes for you, too. Thanks again to Jack Veltri for joining us. For Elijah, I'm Jay. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.
They fly
That's
the horse.
expensive.